All right. Here we go back to a little bit more lies. This is the second session of our lies. And now I'm going to talk about Abraham. I'm going to talk about Jacob. I'm going to talk about Moses. I'm going to talk about David. Believe it or not, our textbooks talk about Jewish stuff, you know. And then they talk about Jesus too. We're going to come up here. So, are they teaching any truth about Abraham, about Jacob, about Moses, about David, about Jesus? No, they're teaching lies. And I love it how when I go to some of the school board meeting, because to speak against the lies they taught in our textbooks, some of the American people say, well, they have 27 pages about Islam and only 13 pages about Christianity. Excuse me, what? They're counting pages. These people who are rejecting these things about Islam in our textbooks, they're so ignorant of that which is written in our textbooks. And I said, no, I care less how many pages about Islam. You can insert the entire Quran. It will be my joy to see the Muslims teach the Quran in America, because that will end the existence of Islam in America. It will be my joy to just give me a few pages from the Bible. The problem is they teaching lies about Islam and they teaching lies about Christianity and Judaism. Let me share with you some of these lies. Here we go.
If Abraham moved to the land of Canaan, Palestine, he would be blessed.
Excuse me, if? You mean he didn't? What is if? Huh. If he moved to the land of Canaan, that's good. Palestine between bracket? Why does he put Palestine between bracket? That's we're gonna mess up with your mind, with your kid's mind. Oh, it is a land of Canaan, but it's also Palestine. Let me prove it to you. This will even evolve. This will even evolve. That, by the way, 2005. Here we go, 2006, the following year. The following year. Notice what happened to the word Palestine and the bracket, which used to go around the word Palestine. Here we go.
Israelites formed a branch of Hebrews who settled in Palestine, modern-day Israel.
The word Palestine came out of the bracket. Surprise, surprise. See, Palestine was pregnant. It was inside the mama's belly. Somehow, the time of the birth came in, because it's been a year later now. We passed 9 months. And Palestine was birthed and came out of the brackets. But somehow, the brackets surrounded the modern-day Israel. So now, modern-day Israel is going to go inside the belly. It's a miracle. In 1 year, 2005, the word Palestine between bracket. 9 months later, pregnancy is over. Now we put Palestine out from the bracket. Can anybody see what they're doing? And what is the message here? That the Israelites formed a branch of Hebrews who settled, a branch of Hebrews? Did they ask any rabbi about these lies before they put it in the heart and the mind of our children? Let's continue. Let's continue. Here we go. Oh, it's even get better.
Abraham migrated to Palestine about 1850 BCE. According to their scriptures, some Hebrews migrated from Palestine to Egypt during the 18th century BCE.
So in the previous slide in 2005, if Abraham go to the land of Canaan, if, and we put Palestine between brackets. Now we get a little bit stronger, we get a little bit bolder, nobody complain. I never heard one preacher in this country tell the school board, why are you teaching lies to our children about Abraham? Not a rabbi, no. So let's move a little bit. We're doing good. Let's move it, let's make it a little bit bigger. Why? Abraham migrated to Palestine, and they give you the right date, 1850. And then here we go, according to the scripture. You know why they use the word according? Because it's not true. That's what they believe. That's what they think. According to the scripture. They never use the word according once when they talk in all these textbooks about Allah, about Muhammad, about the Quran, about Islam, about Muslim. Not once. They always squeeze the word according when they talk about things which is true. Biblical teaching, Christianity, and Judaism, and others. According to the scripture, some Hebrews migrated from Palestine to Egypt. Who are these? That is Father Jacob. Israel himself, who when he came to my home country, Egypt, was 72 of his people. Joseph was in Egypt. Manasseh and Ephraim was born in Egypt. And the 72 came with Jacob, from the land of Canaan, not Palestine, to Egypt. So they make Abraham going to Palestine. They make Jacob leaving Palestine, coming to Egypt. And God help us, what is next? You're going to be surprised here. Watch with me. Here we go.
This branch of the Hebrews departed under the leadership of Moses and went to Palestine. These Hebrews, known as the Israelites, fought bitterly with other inhabitants of Palestine and carved out a territory for themselves.
Moses left Egypt and went back to Palestine. I mean, the lie is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Abraham went to Palestine. Jacob left Palestine and went to Egypt. Moses left Egypt going back to Palestine. And they fought the Palestinians. Boy, oh boy. Now I know for sure that these wicked Jewish people occupying the land of Palestine. Believe it or not. A playboy girl, whatever he calls them, a sex girl from Lebanon, from the country of Lebanon, who the Hamas and Hezbollah want her dead because she's, playboy girl. Or how you call this thing? Playboy magazine? Playboy magazine star. Pornography star. Hey, the right word. So she made a statement after October 7, and she said, this land belonged to the Palestinians. After all, they've been here for thousands and thousands of years, and we never heard of the Jewish people until 1947. And now, listen, and Hamas and Hezbollah, who want her dead, are praising her and make her famous for that statement. They love gay and lesbian in America. They just got a guy who dressed like a lady. What do you call them? Guy dressed like a lady? Yeah, reading about freeing the Palestinians, and the Muslims surrounding them and so happy. They will use anybody in this country around the world as useful idiot to accomplish their goal. And when the right time comes, the Hamas people who like this porn star and who likes this the guy who dressed like a lady, they will be killing gay and lesbian first. And then they'll be killing the rest of us, Jews, Christians, and others who will not submit to Islam. But here we go. Everything is surrounding the word Palestine because simply they are lying to our children in our textbooks. Here we go in Glencoe World History, page 56, 2005. We read,
Although later, after King David, the Israelites would be conquered and scattered, Palestine remained the promised land in the minds of many Jews.
I mean, you have to be really stupid to read something like that and think this truth in it. Why? Although later, what do you mean later? Oh, after King David. Do you know anything about the Bible? That our teacher is that stupid? Does he have a high school himself before they can teach in high school? Have they ever thought maybe we need to open the Bible and read about King David? What happened during the life of King David? He was victorious. What happened when he died? Or before he died, he made his son Solomon to be king. Was Solomon involved in a war to defend his land? No, it was 40 years of peace. Why? Because his daddy did a great job. He conquered every city, every group of people in the promised land. He actually was hoping to go even outside. That's why God punished him when he started counting the 20 years and older, and God literally punished him and the children of Israel because God does not want them to be Hitler or does not want them to be Alexander the Great. He only wants them to be on the promised land and the promised land only, because here is the true blessing. It's not the seeds of Abraham, but the seed, singular seed of Abraham. That's through Christ, who will be in that promised land, who will be born literally after David was 1,000 years, who will die on the cross, who will rise again on the third day. That is where's the source of the blessing, the Lord Jesus Christ, to the whole world. That's why God was cleaning this area of the promised land for his son to be born, to die, to be buried, to rise again. So, it is only in the mind of the Jewish people. Even though, if you study the true history of the Bible, you see after King David, Israelites were never conquered. They were never scattered. They were so strong. David did a good number on the Philistines. He killed many of them. And we're talking about the original Philistines, not the Arab who are not Arab, Philistines who are not Philistines, who live today in the promised land. I'm going to prove this to you a little bit later. All right? Let's move on to page 57.
Conflict in Palestine, conflict in Southwest Asia has a long history. When the Israelites entered Palestine around 1220 BC, other peoples were already settled there. One of these peoples was the Philistines. For over 2 centuries, Israelites and Philistines fought for control. By 1020 BC, the Israelites found themselves on the verge of being conquered by the Philistines. David, the next king of the Israelites, defeated the Philistines and established control over all of Palestine.
You see, that slide contradicts what he said earlier in the previous slide. They were lying there or they're lying here. But obviously that slide once again in that textbook start was a lie. Conflict in Palestine. No, 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 no. Conflict in Israel. Okay? Conflict in it, not in Palestine. I don't know where does he come up with the name Palestine for that land, except to brainwash your children. That's why today they're protesting against the Jewish people, against Israel. Now, the date 1220 BC, that date comes from the bottom of hell. A big lie. Why is that? Because when Moses left Egypt, it was not 1220 BC, but it was 15 BC. How do I prove that? It's very simple. You see Moses come out of Egypt, and then he was 8 years old. He actually lived in the wilderness of Midian for another, outside of Israel, outside the promised land for 40 years, going in circles. We're going to see a little about that, read about, a little bit about that later. And then we have Joshua, who led the children of Israel to the promised land. Joshua and Caleb, obviously, the only two who were able to get there. And then we got one judge after another judge of another judge. Now, the book of Judges is not mentioned in the Quran. And the book of Judges was not read by many of our teachers in our public schools, because have they read and studied the book of Judges, they will find that we need roughly 400 years between Moses and between Saul and King David. These are the judges. If you read the book of Judges, I call it the circle of life. Why? The children of Israel sin against God, so God punishes them by allowing the people, the original people of the land, we're going to learn a lot about them in a few minutes here, to be harassing them and to persecute them, and they will be struggling and will be fighting, struggling, and they cry out to God, okay, God, we repent, we have sinned, please save us, please deliver us. And then God, okay, since you repent, he sent the judge, and the judge will fight for them against their enemies, and they will have victory, and they will live in good few years, 20, 30, 40 years, and then they sin against God again. And the circle keep going back and forth. If you add the times of these judges who ruled over the children of Israel after Moses and Joshua died, you needed the 400 years. Now, if you make them go to the promised land 1220 BC, that means David have to be king roughly around 800 BC. No, King David was 1,000 years. So we're missing 280 years. But why the textbooks on purpose choose to pick up the date 1220, not 1500? Because in reality, 1220, there were some Palestinians live in the promised land who were resettled by Ramses III, my pharaoh, in these 5 cities, not the entire land, but down in the south near Egypt under his supervision. We're going to read about that from the true history of Egypt. Lie about the date, mention Palestine, Philistinians, and blah, 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 all these lies. Now, you see here, King David here, 1020 BC. That's when you see King David, very close to the right age. I needed 400 years between 1020 BC and 1220 BC. You cannot do it that way. We're missing the 208 years. You can't. And by the way, maybe somebody say, well, 2 judges were judging together. No, read the Bible. The judge died, the people sin, or the people gone, the new judge. There's time between each one of these judges. All right? So, this is another lie in our textbooks. Sadly, many of our churches do not know these lies existed, nor our teachers who are teaching, some of them. I have talked, by the way, to some of our wonderful Christian teachers in our public schools. They're Christians. And after they saw this presentation, say, Brother Usama, I never thought that I was teaching lies in our textbooks because I did not know too much about the subject. Christian, godly men and women who were teaching these lies without approval of, the truth of what it is. Now, let's talk about this book here. That's 2005. On page 230 in People, Places, and change. Here we go.
Jesus was born in Bethlehem, a small town in ancient Palestine.
Yes, indeed. Jesus was a Palestinian, boys and girls. And I never heard one preacher in America complain. It seemed to me I'm making a big deal about nothing. No, I'm making a big deal about most important thing. And sadly, when we call churches in this country, we get every 100 church we call, we get one say, come speak to us. And I'm not talking about liberal churches. I'm talking about 100 conservative churches in America. They don't want us to speak the truth and teach and educate them and their people about that topic or any other topics. God help us. God help us. Another textbook on 2004, a year earlier, on page 565.
Jesus, the founder of Christianity, was born in Palestine.
And once again, don't forget, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, our students will believe it, our teachers will believe it, everybody in this country believe it. That is a problem. That is a problem. So once again, let me summarize what I shared with you. Abraham went to Palestine. Jacob left Palestine and went to Egypt. Moses left Egypt, went back to Palestine. David was in Palestine, and Jesus was Palestine. I mean, everybody in Palestine. There's no Israel. If you look for the word Israel in our textbooks, you will never find it. The land Israel, I mean, it will be mentioned just in their mind, in their thought, according to their belief. But as a fact, no. The fact is, in our textbooks, that land is called Palestine, and that land belonged to the Palestinians, and the Jewish people are occupying that land. End of story. Now you know why we have these riots all over our universities in this country. And I've been teaching that literally for the last 12 years when I put this presentation together. So it's not like I made this up last week because I saw what's happening in our campuses. No, that's an old presentation. I got the dates. I got sound bite of it on VCY, recorded 12 years ago. Here's the truth. Here's what we ought to teach our children instead of these garbage lies from the bottom of hell.
The historically improper use of the word Palestine delegitimizes the modern state of Israel and gives unwarranted support for the current Palestinian claims for statehood.
You see? Jewish people are occupiers. Poor Palestinians lost their land because these people occupy their land. And if you're a Christian and you have the love of God in you, you should stand up with the poor Palestinians because these wicked Jewish people took their land.
The term Palestine did not come into common use until about 1,600 years after the events described in the book of Genesis.
That if you know through history, not hogwash history, which we are teaching our children in our public schools.
Jesus was not a Palestinian.
Yes, indeed. I know that for a fact. Because even when we sing our song in Christmas, we don't mention the word Palestine, do we? What did Micah say? Micah 5:2. Judah, he said that Jesus will be born in Bethlehem of Ephrathah from Judah. So he gave us the name of the village is Bethlehem, the name of the county is Judah, and the name of the country Israel. Micah was written 500 years before Christ. That's a prophecy. And Matthew tells the same thing. Where Jesus was born? Bethlehem of Judea, according to the prophecy of Micah. And book of Matthew was written what? 60, 70 AD. So it was written after Jesus left for 20 years or so. Why we don't have any writing? Once again, let me remind you that land was not named Palestina until 150 years after Christ. Therefore, you will never find that word written anywhere in the New Testament.
The passages attempt to delegitimize the Bible itself by ignoring God's command to his people Israel and implying that the Israelites one day just decided to leave Egypt and conquer some territory.
Exactly. See, Moses was bored. It was a very hot day. Egyptian is hot. And he said, guys, I'm tired of living in this country. It's too hot. Let's just go back to the land of Palestine so we can kill us some Palestinians and make ourselves a nice piece of land there. We'll get some homes there. That's exactly what happened. Even if you read the Quran, as I'm going to read to you, you find that Allah is involved in it. The Bible, God is involved in it. In the Quran, Allah is involved. It was not just some thought to Moses or somebody in his days. But the textbooks remove God and Allah and the true history, the true biblical teaching out of our textbooks.
World Cultures improperly uses the name Palestine when they should have used Judea and Israel for the name of the land at the time of Jesus.
Amen to that? All right.
Israel should be substituted for Palestine in both passages since the name Palestine is used incorrectly. The name Israel predates the term Palestine by over 1,100 years. Israel, not Palestine, is the Promised Land, widely believed to have been promised to the Jewish people.
And I repeated these facts similar to what they did when they repeated their lies. Because I personally believe if you tell the fact often enough and keep repeating it, people will convince in it, will believe in it, and 100% to be their heart belief, not the lies they teach our children in our public school. The third session of lies, which sadly they teach our children in our public schools, and now we're going to move from the days of Moses and Jesus all the way to 1947 till today. And once again, the agenda is the same. They're brainwashing our children to tell them the same message over and over again. These wicked Jewish people are occupiers, and the Israelites have no right for that land, and Palestinians need to be set free. From the river to the sea, Palestinians will be set free, which means, in simple words, we're going to kill all the Jews, and we're going to allow the poor Palestinians to take back their land and their homes. Listen to these lies.
Wars soon broke out between Israel and its Arab neighbors.
You see? I told you, these wicked Jewish people went in war with their neighbors. I mean, can't you be Christian, believe in the Bible? Even Jesus said in the Old Testament, love your neighbor, hate your enemy. But these wicked Jewish people killed their neighbors. The Arab neighbors. They didn't say Muslims, they say Arab. But in the mosque, they don't say Arab. They say Muslims. Which mosque? The mosque in America. The mosque all over the world. But in our public school, the Arabs. What? Keep it a little bit out from religion now. Just make it Arab. Okay. All right. We'll move on. Let's move on. Here's the next slide.
Main idea. Question. What land did Israel gain from the wars against its Arab neighbors?
Now, I know you love your children so much. And I know you will never be upset if your children come home with A's. Not B's, not C's, A's. So if your son have in this world culture class or modern day history class, he doesn't like history, she does not like history, and they come home with C, please, honey, please, sweetheart, study hard. Please, I will help you. Can you read? Stop watching TV. Can you read? I want you to answer your questions right. I'm looking for an A. Can you give me an A? Here's the deal. I will buy you a nice dress. I will buy you a nice suit. I will take you on a vacation to where here's there. Give me an A. And your kids who love you so much work so hard, study hard, so they can answer the questions right. And when they answer the question right, they get A. They come home, you hug them, you kiss them, you love on them. Your kids are A student. How are you going to answer that question? What land did the Israeli gain from their wars against their neighbors? You can't imagine they're killing their neighbors, the Arab neighbors. Oh, I remember the West Bank. I remember Gaza Strip. I remember, oh, A, good Johnny. Mommy will be happy. You got an A. What a stupid parents, and what a stupid teachers, and what a stupid country. And I hate to say that because people complain about me all the time. Usama, you use the word stupid. It is reality. We are stupid. Even when we study knowledge, because we're studying lies, and we pass the test about the lies, and we get an A of being deceived and deceiving others. God help me. Here we go.
While the United Nations granted the Palestinians their own homeland, the Israelis seized much of the land, including the West Bank and Gaza Strip, during its various wars.
The United Nations granted the Palestinians their own homeland. It was never their own homeland. They were occupied in that land in the year 641. These Arab Muslims who are not Arab, who are not Palestinians, whom they called themselves Palestinians, did not exist in that land until 641 AD when they invaded that land 1 year later after they took over Egypt 1640. I'm sorry, 640. But they made it their homeland, not Israel, Palestine. And then here we go, this wicked Israeli who seized much of that land. They're still stealing land from the poor Arab neighbors. They went in war, 1948. They went in war, 1967. We're going to see another war, 1973, just killing the poor Palestinians who have nothing to fight for. I mean, they have no armies. The Jewish people are wicked people. They love money. They love bank. They love land. They're stealing. I mean, they're wicked. They're occupiers. That's exactly what your children believe. With and what? Exactly. Colonized. It's exactly the right word to use in our university today. All right, let's move on.
1967. Israel wins Six-Day War and seizes more Palestinian land for what it calls security purposes.
That's a good excuse. They just seized more. They went in war for 6 days, killing the poor neighbors, and seized more land, seized more land, seized more land. I'm telling you, they're very bad people. Let's move on to, we're not going to play that video. I'm going to skip that video. Okay. I was going to skip the video, but I show a little bit. Bollywood. How many of you heard of Bollywood? Not Hollywood, Bollywood. That is the propaganda of the Palestinians, which they use to convince you, moms and dads at home, that what your children are learning in the school is true. These Jewish people are bad people, and they are occupying their land. All right?
Millions of viewers watch this in-depth news report. Scenes like these of action and injury are broadcast all over the world. Flashed on the screen in dramatic sight bites, presented in a larger storyline, they're a major source of information about the enduring Arab-Israeli conflict. And yet, something is amiss, something that escapes the attention of news editors and viewers alike. Let's examine these images in their original context, the raw footage from which reporters and news editors piece together their stories. Most of the scenes you're about to see were filmed by Palestinian cameramen working independently, employed and equipped by Western news agencies at Netzarim Junction in the Gaza Strip on September 30th, 2000. Palestinian and Israeli policemen had been doing joint patrols as stipulated in the Oslo Accords. On this day, angry crowds with stones and Molotov cocktails gathered at the junction, attacked the Israeli outpost, and were joined by Palestinian police firing their guns. Let us consider another battle scene filmed that day, or possibly the day after. A Palestinian gunman fires into a hole in the wall. It looks like a tense moment of house-to-house fighting. We would assume he's firing at the Israelis. He is firing in their direction, but he can't be firing at them. Here he is, on the far side of the factory building, completely out of range of the Israeli position. Are Israeli soldiers inside the factory? All witnesses concur. They never left their fortified position. Earlier footage gives us a look inside the hole in the wall. The street fighter is conversing with his comrades inside the room he will soon be spraying with gunfire. A large crowd, mostly civilians, and a few men in military garb, mills around as Palestinian soldiers climb in and out of the hole in the wall. Note the civilians giving orders to a military man. Does this look like a war zone? Orders come to clear the area. Military men line up as if they're taking cover, but from what? Not Israeli bullets. And now, the street fighter runs up to the hole in the wall and fires into the empty room. The raw footage clearly indicates a staged scene. A sight bite became news. Consider a third scene. This funeral procession was filmed by an Israeli reconnaissance drone in the aftermath of a military operation in Jenin in April 2002. The men accidentally tipped the funeral bier, dropping the corpse. When they regroup, the corpse climbs back on the bier. Later, a crowd has joined the procession. The pallbearers drop the man again. The crowd scatters, frightened perhaps at seeing the dead man stir with life. But the pallbearers regroup, the corpse climbs forthrightly on the bier. And once again, they wrap him in the winding sheet. Welcome to Pallywood. Pallywood is a bustling industry of alfresco cinema, stage news filmed in real time against a backdrop of a complex conflict we all think we know. It has directors, makeup men, sets, extras, often playing dead or injured, props, especially ambulances, plenty of cameramen, and sometimes large audiences. Pallywood operates according to a few basic sequences. One person fakes or exaggerates an injury and attracts a crowd, drawn from the ready and willing onlookers eager to gather at the slightest provocation. Someone waves or whistles, and an ambulance appears as if on cue. Frantic men grab the casualty, sometimes causing further injury, and load him into the ambulance. The hallmarks of Pallywood are casualties that look more like football players acting for the referee than real injuries, ever-ready ambulances, and rough evacuations that would cripple or kill a truly wounded victim. Why so rough? Those evacuating the wounded seem to be in a panic. But why? Presumably, they're under Israeli fire. They certainly act as if they are. But if that were the case, wouldn't they carry the injured away from the Israeli post? Here, a group of youths runs with an apparently injured boy away from the Israelis. But when they get to the other side of the highway, an adult grabs the boy from the youths and runs him back to an ambulance waiting right in front of the Israeli post, where people stand around, apparently unafraid of Israeli guns. Consider yet another scene. This young man runs across the road away from the Israelis, carrying what looks like a Molotov cocktail. He hands it off. A red stain on his forehead looks like blood, but his movements betray no sign of injury. He runs into a crowd where he becomes a casualty of war. Note that although he should look like someone with a head injury, he sits firmly, his head held high as the crowd carries him. Note also the France 2 cameraman catching the dramatic sight bite. But now what are they doing? This group rushes him back directly in front of the Israeli post. Here people cluster around, backs to the Israeli guns without the slightest sign of concern.
Sadly, the United Nations is involved in that video. The French is involved in that video. CNN and MSNBC and all this garbage media we have in America involved in this video. Do you know it's fake news? Do you know it's not true? Do you know that I invented the word fake news 12 years ago when I saw these videos? And Mr. Trump heard me and he using it? Fake news? It's fake news. It's a lie. And the sad thing is, none of the American people see the raw footage. They only see 10 seconds, 15. If you watch what they put about Israeli killing children from Palestine, women from Palestine, they wounded 16 and they killed 4. And it's only, they show you from the video, literally 10 seconds, 15 seconds. You don't see an hour. Because if you see an hour, you see that comedy. As a matter of fact, one of the videos is seen, the dead people who were about to be buried together. From that wall to that wall, I don't know how many people, there was a bunch of them. All were covered with white clothes, white fabric, and on the white fabric written in the Arabic language, Al-Shahid, the martyr, and then his name. The martyr and his name, the martyr. All of them were dead. Surprise, surprise, if you keep watching the video, the big one, not the small one, the guy said, My nose is itching me. I need to scratch my nose. I'm sweating so hard. When can you get this over with? He said, don't you dare move. He said, no, I have to scratch my nose. I can't. Okay, do it quickly. The dead guy uncovered his own head, scratch his nose, wipe his face from the water, and then he covered himself and God just him again. That not one of them is dead. But the CNN, the stupid media in America, will show us the picture. Here we go, 14 people are dead, 20 people are dead, who killed by the Jews, the wicked one. And Hollywood, God help us, is winning so good. And the sad thing, we talk about the United Nations. We gave millions and millions. I wish Mr. Trump, if he ever win, he want to fix this up. Get rid of UN. We don't need to be in that garbage. Here's the ambulance. You bought this ambulance with your money so they can use it to do that video to make the Jewish people look bad and make the poor Palestinian poor. That's why we're going to bring a few 100,000 of them to America. Just watch what's going to happen in this country.
American support of Israel also angered many in the Middle East. In 1947, the UN divided British-controlled Palestine into two territories to provide a home for Jews. One part became Israel, the other part was to become a state for Palestinian Arabs. But fighting between Israel and the Arab states in 1948 left this territory under the control of Israel, Jordan, and Egypt.
Let me give you the bottom line of that slide. Stop supporting Israel. You need to turn your back against Israel. You need to support Hamas. You need to support the Palestinian Muslims, because if you think September 11 was bad, what is coming is yet worse than you can imagine. Israel became Israel, the one part, and the other part was supposed. The other part was to become. Why it never become? Because the Palestinians choose not to. Why? Because they listen to the lies of the Egyptian and the Jordanian and the Syrian and the rest of the Muslim world. You do not need to take half of the pie. We will perform jihad. We will kill the Jewish people, and you will take the whole pie. You're going to eat the whole thing by yourself. That's exactly what they thought, what they did with the poor Palestinians who were used as useful idiots by the Muslims who do not like them, who hate them, because we have expression in Egypt. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. See, we hate the Muslims of the Middle East. We hate the Jewish people. We hate the Palestinians. But the Palestinians hate the Jewish people. Why not use them to accomplish our goal? Let's send them all what they need. Not money to buy food, not medicine, not things for life. No, send them all what they need of weapons so they can go ahead, kill themselves while they're killing the Jews. You guys, a point? The poor Palestinians cannot be set free as long as they are being manipulated and used by the Muslims of the world for their own destruction, for killing the Jews. Here's the response. Last response for these lies. We're not going to talk about these lies anymore. So here we go. Here's what we should teach our children. By the way, what I'm sharing with you here, that's what they taught me in Egypt. When I was 17, 18 years old in Egypt, and I studied history, wars with Israel, what you're about here is what the Mr. Ahmed or Mr. Ali, whatever Muslim teachers I have in Egypt, that's what they taught me. Why can't we teach our children in America what the Muslim teach in Egypt about these wars?
A force of combined Arab states waged aggressive war against Israel in 1948, 1967, and again in 1973. The 1973 war began as a sneak attack against Israel on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar.
Notice here, it is not the Israeli fighting their neighbors, the Arab neighbors. No, the Arab neighbors is the one who started these three wars. And not just these are the big three wars. I mean, guys, the last 10 years, rockets every day. And when they run out of rocket, they have ceased of fighting so they can wait to collect more rockets. And when they have enough, 400, 600, 800, then they launch them. And when they get them all bombed on Israel, then they wait a little bit. I mean, it is continuing war day after day after day. And by the way, what happened October 7 is a memory of Yom Kippur, 50 years exactly. It was not by accident.
Israel fought back in self-defense against Arab aggression and won each of the wars.
It is Muslim aggression against the Jewish people, and the Jewish people have the right to defend themselves. Which man with common sense or logic, when somebody do to you like what they did in October 7, will not stand up and fight and kill the last Palestinian? Not the last Hamas, the last Palestinian. Because you see what happened here? All the Muslims of Egypt, poor Palestinians, have nothing to do with Hamas. Hamas is a radical. Please, will you stop Israel from fighting the poor Palestinians? And when it did not work, all the Muslims of America, they say, we're all Hamas. We are Hamas. We're all Hamas. Well, I'm glad you confess it, because that's the truth. You choose them to be your leaders. You're happy to have them your leaders because you're stupid like your leaders. 1948, 1967, 1973, war after war after war. My professors in Egypt taught me when I was in high school, in the true history class, that we decided to perform jihad. They didn't even use the word war. They used the word jihad against the Zionists, against those whom the curse of Allah is upon, the Jews, and Allahu Akbar, and we were in unity, Allahu Akbar. And they brag about how many airplanes we had, how many tanks we have, how many soldiers we have. By the way, if you compare these numbers to the numbers of the weapons and the soldiers of the Jews, it's almost 8-1. More Arab airplanes, more Muslim tanks, more Muslim soldiers, 10-1, 8-1, 8-9, 10-1. I wish I can put a slide here. I have it, but I never put it in my PowerPoint to show you how many Muslims were involved in this war, how many countries. It's not just Egypt and Syria and Jordan. Actually, there are plenty of other countries were involved. And then my professor said, and we shouted, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, and we have victory. We won in 1948, we won in 1967, and we won in 1973, and by Allah's will, we have one more jihad. One more jihad is coming up where we will kill the last Jew, as the Apostle of Allah taught us. I'm going to read you that quote in the end. And we will take the whole entire land. So I go home and I talk to my daddy. He's a Baptist minister in Egypt. He used to. He's in heaven now. And I said, Dad, did we go to war against Israel in these years? He said, yes. The Muslim performed jihad. I said, oh my God. My teacher is not lying to me. I said, and Dad, did we win all these wars? He said, no, we did not win any war. He said, what do you mean you did not win any war? The teacher said we won. He said, yeah, we won in our dreams. That's why Israel still live in their own homeland. You see, the truth is not what they're teaching our children in our public school like we are learning in Egypt. It was jihad. It is war. It was aggressive war launched by the Muslims of the Muslim world, and they all wanted to wipe out and remove Israel from the face of the earth. That is what our stupid teachers in America need to learn. Our stupid students in our university need to learn. They actually need to learn about what happened October 7. I believe first of all, this semester is over, okay? We only have a few hours left in this semester. The only way you can stop this riots and the taking over of our universities, the only way you can stop that is next semester. In the beginning of the semester, here's my solution for our, thanks buddy, let's put him. There's a solution for our fixing the problem. Otherwise, it's going to get bigger. Right now, we're 200 universities, 200 college camps. Next year will be 2,000. I promise you, 2,000. Especially when we allowed more Muslims to come to America from Hamas. I mean, we're talking about 2,000, okay? Now, the only way you can end it, first day in the school, you're going to bring the videos from the country of Israel. They have them. And you play it in every university. What happened last October 7? You're going to do that in every university in America. If the kids cannot watch it, they need to go home, stay with their mommy and daddy, and drink milk with their cereal in the morning, okay? They don't need to be in school. If they are big enough, mature enough, 18, 19 years old, who know how to protest against Israel, they need to learn about what happened in Israel. They need to watch these few minutes of video, what they did to the little children, what they did to the women, what they did to the husband, and the whole picture. And then say, if you want to protest, please, go ahead, walk. I promise you, if we show these videos all over our universities, not only our stupid students, American, will never stand up with the Palestinian to protest, the Muslim in America will go in their caves. There is not one of them will ask for anything anymore because we got your number and we figured you are a big garbage liar, jihadi, and we're going to kick you out of our country. Literally, we'll round, after they see the video, not now, after they see a video, they want to protest, we'll round them up on airplane back to where they come from. This is not a country to be given to terrorists. This is a country to be supported by us, the Americans. If somebody will listen to that video, if somebody will take my advice, you can fix these universities.
Israel took land after the 1967 war to prevent future attacks from being staged so easily. In addition, Israel took back Jerusalem, her historic capital since 1000 BC, that had been partially occupied by Arabs.
Yes, indeed. Jerusalem was occupied by the Arab. Thanks to Mr. Trump, he brought it back to the Jewish people and he put our embassy in it. By the way, all previous presidents give the same promise because they were belittling the mind of the ignorant Jewish people who live in America. Vote for me. I will make Jerusalem the capital. I will take our embassies there. And not one of them did it, including Barack Hussein Obama. Not one of them did it. They did it. They talk about it to gain the vote of the liberal Jews, and that was the end of it. Mr. Trump said it and did it.
It is not credible to blame American development of oil or American ideas for the rise of Islamist terrorism. There have been frequent and violent terror attacks against the Muslims in many Muslim countries as well.
The attacks against the Jews, the attacks against the Christians started 1450 years ago when Muhammad figured out none of the Jews or the Christians will believe in him. He used his sword and he used his power of the 10,000 men who surrounded him in Medina. A city used to be a Jewish community. He took it by the edge of the sword, changed its name from Yasrib, a Jewish name, to Medina, which still until today. So, the occupation of the Jews and the Christians, the killing of the Jews and the Christians, and all their land has been there for the last 1450 years.
The Arab League declared a jihad, or holy war, against Israel in 1948.
That's true.
Transjordan's leader stated that the Arabs would wage a war of extermination against Israel.
That's exactly what you want to do. Get rid of the last Jew. And by the way, not the last Jew in Israel, the last Jew on earth. As I always say, if we send some Jewish people to the moon, the Muslim will do anything they can to send somebody to the moon to kill the Jewish people who live on the moon.